Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be moderating this event. My name is Ronaldo Veidano. I am a member of the board of CEBRI, and I am one of the coordinators of the Europe group of CEBRI. So it's a distinguished honor to receive such a nice group of representatives from Belgium and Brazil. And I hope we'll have a very interesting discussion about a topic that I think is of great interest for both Brazil and Belgium. The access to an inclusive health care system and the response to the public health challenges are fundamentals to both Brazil and Belgium. Specifically, the debate concerning vaccines remains highly relevant in both contexts. In addition to search for encompassing accessibility to the health is a persistent objective to the necessity to the disparities, and being also equitable results of diverse demographic communities. This event has gathered experts from both countries with the intent of sharing experiences and identifying possible solutions for the common challenges which both countries face. Which lessons learned can be exchanged between Belgian and Brazilian actors to encourage cross-fertilization between our respective experiences with health management. We are very honored to receive a distinguished group of speakers. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers today. Mr. Jeroen Koerman, Director General of Bilateral Matters of the Minister of Foreign Relations of Belgium. Fernanda Simini, Senior Fellow of CEBRI and Professor at the Federal University of Minas Gerais. José Castilho, CEO of Quantum Biosciences. And Ricardo Godoy, Deputy Director of Innovation of Biomanguinhos. It's a great pleasure to introduce these people, and without further ado, I will turn the floor to Mr. José Castilho, who is, I think, going to speak us from Belgium, since unfortunately he could not join us here in Rio. Mr. Castilho.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Verano. So I'm very happy to be, unfortunately, I'm not with you. So I will be in Brazil by mid-May, but it was not possible for me to join this group for today. But even if I'm not with you guys, I think, Mr. Verano, that it would make more sense that Jeroen Koerman starts. Actually, that was the plan, if I remember correctly, in the agenda I got. Otherwise, I can start myself. No, what do you think, Mr. Koerman?
That's fine. The reason I turned the floor over to you, I was told when I got here that you were in a different time zone and that it would probably be better for you to start. But it's
happy
my
to
pleasure to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Koerman.
Well, thank you. In that case, I'll start. I have to say I feel a bit intimidated because I'm surrounded by scientists and true specialists of biopharma and biotech, which I'm not, but I'm very glad to be here. I'll give you a bit of a general picture of biopharma and biotech in Belgium and what we can do between Belgium and Brazil. Now, you may be thinking, why a session on biopharma at an institute like CEBRI, which is dealing with international relations? But I think it has become increasingly clear that biopharma and biotech is actually a very strategic sector, a very strategic industry that is very closely related to international relations. The issue of global public health has become, of course, front and center with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've all seen that it is actually a true security issue. What we've also seen, I think, with COVID-19 is how interconnected the world actually is. Remember, you had a virus that started in China, in not even the largest city of China, in Wuhan, in, let's assume, somewhere November 2019. And a few months later, it was everywhere in the world, which was very different from that previous pandemic, also in Asia, SARS, which was basically remained regional, never spread to the rest of the world, because at that time the world wasn't so interconnected yet. Yet at the time of COVID-19, one should not forget that I was living in New York at the time. At that time there were, just between American cities and Wuhan, you had 6 daily direct flights. So it's no wonder that this virus was, before it was even detected by public health authorities, where it started, it was already everywhere in the world. So it is public health and biopharma is indeed an issue that needs to be dealt with in a context of international relations. Now, why? You may wonder why Belgium and biopharma. After all, Belgium is a relatively small country, 11 million people. That's the size of it's smaller than a lot of big cities in the world. But what is so special about biopharma in Belgium, that it is it's one of our premier and most formidable ecosystems that we have. I would say that when it comes to biopharma and biotech, Belgium is really playing in Premier League and at the very top of the league on top of that. We are #1 in terms of R&D expenditures per capita in the field of biopharma. We are #2 in clinical tests and in patent applications. And just in terms of R&D, we are not just #1 per capita, we are also 70% higher than the #2, which is Denmark. Just to give you another example, as was mentioned yesterday by one of the speakers, the pharma company GSK has the largest vaccine manufacturing plant in the world in Belgium. I think there are 10 Belgian stock market listed biotech companies for a total market value of about $25 billion. They represent 75% of Europe's total biotech market. So Belgium really plays a very important role. And then the question is, why is that? Because obviously this is not falling out of the sky. There is a reason why we have that. I think the first one is a very strong emphasis on innovation. Second one is, it's related to that, a very strong and good collaboration between academic research and industry. Third one is probably specialized tax schemes that give true incentives to innovative companies. There is this idea of a Belgian patent box. And all these have made that we have a very strong ecosystem. And this has led last year to the creation of a so-called Belgium Health and Biotech Valley, which is funded by industry, by the academic sector, and also by the government. So biotech is important, biopharma is important, Belgium plays a major role. Question now is what's next? Because obviously, as in many sectors, if you become complacent, you're quickly overtaken by others. So the government commissioned a study from Boston Consulting Group last year that came up with a few conclusions. One was to look for measures to build, retain, and attract the best talent worldwide that we can find, which is a really big challenge in this industry. Two, measures to build even more attractiveness and competitiveness throughout the industry and throughout the value chain. Three, unlock the potential of health data. In Belgium, we have a health system that we have very good health data. It is not always easy to use those data, especially by industry because of the GDPR protections that we have, safeguards that we have, but we do have, because the whole system is really dependent on our national identity, national registration number, and so you can very easily you can very easily track people throughout their lives on their health. So the data are there. It's just a matter of how we can better use them for future research. Next recommendation was an end-to-end approach throughout the value chain, also further stimulating collaboration across stakeholders, and finally looking into and potentially doubling down on selective innovative platforms like cell therapy, gene therapy, mRNA, vaccines, all these new things that hold great promise. That is at the Belgian level. Then we look at what can be done at European and international level. Obviously, internationally, there is a lot of talk about the importance of universal health access. I think if there is one lesson that we learned from COVID-19, that is that whenever you are facing a global pandemic, we are only safe if the entire world is safe. There is no point in thinking that one country can just resolve it for themselves and the rest of the world shouldn't resolve the issue, because the way the way we are interconnected today means that nobody is living on an island anymore, and so we are really in this all together. That is why in the framework of our EU presidency, global health has been a priority. We had a Commission proposal to boost biotech, where Belgium, as EU presidency, has played an important role. We also have Belgian companies like Universals who make ready-made mobile, almost mobile, not really mobile, but based on containers, labs that can easily be deployed in poorer countries. It is also an important part of our bilateral trade. We have very specialized infrastructure, for instance, at the airport, where it's very important to have the cold chain to store all these products, which we do have in Brussels. And then looking at Latin America, of course, it's also very present there. We had the EU, LAC, Latin American Caribbean, high-level dialogue on inclusive access to health products. There is cooperation between the Antwerp Tropical Medicine Institute and other institutes, for instance, the Tropical Medicine Institute in Cuba, I think in Havana. In Brazil, we have cooperation with Fiocruz. Actually already since a long date, because with Fiocruz we had already in 2018, pre-COVID, we had the first conference of GSTIC, a Belgium-based organization that was co-hosting a conference with Fiocruz in 2018. We have EU LAC health projects, and then we have cooperation with Belgian universities throughout. So these are just a few elements of how we can cooperate, what kind of cooperation we have between Belgium and Brazil in the field of biopharma and biotech. So maybe in conclusion, let me say that when we talk about biopharma and biotech, Belgium is really one of the important and big players, and it really gives me pride to say that, because being from a smaller country, it's not really in every industry that we can say that. I believe there is enormous potential in the Belgian-Brazilian cooperation in this field, and therefore it will also be an important focus in the trade mission presided over by Princess Astrid that will visit Brazil in November. And that will, I think, be a good occasion to, on the one hand, showcase, but on the other hand, also create momentum for further cooperation that our companies on both sides can build upon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flip. I should say that CEBRI is very honored that you have sought us out to have this event. We have the pleasure of having the Consul General of Belgium with us, Mrs. Mouchard. For us, CEBRI is a great privilege to have you as a member of our organization. So the next speaker, according to my list here, I hope I don't make the same mistake, is Ricardo Godoy from Fiocruz.
Hi, hello.
I should turn the floor over to Mr. Castillo first. Okay, Mr. Castillo, sorry.
Sure. No. Thank you, and sorry for the confusion. So first, thanks a lot, of course, for the invitation, to participate to this table ronde, to this roundtable. And indeed, I'm very happy, Mr. Kocheman, that you started, because there is, of course, many things that that I wanted to leverage on your first presentation. First, indeed, we are a small country, and I think that this, in many ways, can be a great advantage in the sense that being a small country, investing a lot in innovation, we are, very much looking for international collaborations. And I must tell you that in my previous life, being responsible for industrialization of our vaccines at GSK Biologics, and Mr. Corman was referring to GSK, I had already the pleasure, that was in the early 2000s, to work with Fiocruz, doing already technology transfer, and knowing that at Biomanguinhos today, the measles, mumps, rubella, and I think varicella vaccines are the result of a technology transfer, transfer of know-how and training of this great company. So this is for us already a very long story of, for myself at least, of more than 20 years. And indeed, we live in a country where there is a strong focus on innovation in the pharmaceutical industry, and more specifically in biopharma. And to introduce a little bit what we do, and the reason why I'm so honored to be here with you today. We try to contribute to a piece of this long chain, that starts with discovery. This is what, large companies like GSK, like UCB, like Janssen, so J&J and Takeda do in Belgium, but there is others. So, these large corporations, they have the muscle, they have the competencies, they have the market know-how to invest into new drug development. And then there is, these same very big corporations that also have very big manufacturing plants in our country. And actually what we do as a company, Univercells, and today more Quantum, which is a subsidiary of our company, we innovate into one piece of this value chain, which is the manufacturing. So we are convinced, and I think that Biomanguinhos is convinced as well, in the context of the collaboration we have with them, we are convinced that innovation in manufacturing can have a very big impact in terms of availability of complex and expensive drugs, and also into affordability. So when you look at, the cost that is related to the establishment of a large-scale viral vaccine manufacturing facility, to the capital expenditure that is needed to produce monoclonal antibodies to treat cancer or to treat autoimmune diseases, in many countries, the first barrier to implement local manufacturing is capital. And so this is the first barrier that we try to lower as much as possible by innovating in the way those drugs are produced. So what we develop are, engineering principles that we call first intensification. So we always start for a certain vaccine. It can be, a viral vaccine. It can be an RNA-based vaccine. We look at the way it's produced today, what is the state of the art, and we redesign the way to produce the same thing. No, we don't try to be a drug developer. This is not what we are good at. We try to reimagine the way to produce that drug through this principle of intensification. So the goal is to dramatically reduce the size of the manufacturing equipment, and consequently dramatically reduce the size of the manufacturing facility. And then this has a direct consequence in terms of the capital expenditure that will be requested to establish local manufacturing. So this is what we have been doing since 2013, when we started up the activities of Univercells. We have been doing that for the production of viral vaccines, and since 21, we are doing that for the production of RNA-based drugs. So that's actually the first agreement we enter into with the Fiocruz Biomanguinhos for the installation of local manufacturing systems to make the production of RNA drugs easier and more cost effective. And so this innovation in biomanufacturing, we think, can have a dramatic impact in terms of pandemic readiness, in the sense that when you are able to manufacture large quantities of drugs onto a small footprint, you can implement in an easier manner pandemic-ready facilities all over the world. Maybe in South America, 3 to 5 of them would be sufficient. Maybe another 3 to 5 in North America, maybe 3 in Europe. So it means that we could, be better prepared if, unfortunately, a new pandemic pops up. Through these innovations in manufacturing, having smaller systems, smaller manufacturing facilities with lower capital expenditure to be ready, in case something like coronavirus happens again. And in the same manner, we are convinced, and today, if I'm talking about viral manufacturing, in our company, we developed a platform. We initiated that work back in 2005. We have today 200 systems placed all over the world that allow, to give you a concrete example that I'm allowed to disclose. There is today a company in Bangladesh called Incepta that is producing rabies vaccines at very small scale. Our systems have a footprint of less than 1 square meter. So this is very, very small. And they are able to produce 20 million doses of rabies vaccines for their country and for the region, the countries around Bangladesh. And in the case of RNA-based drugs, same approach for us. The processes and the systems we develop, allow our partners and customers to produce dozens of millions of doses of prophylactic vaccines over a footprint which is lower than 4 square meters. And so we think that these innovations in biomanufacturing can have a tremendous impact in terms of local production, into the supply of strategic life-saving drugs, especially vaccines, in many countries around the world, to avoid or to move, I should say, from the current paradigm of centralized manufacturing into very big facilities to distributed manufacturing, in countries where you have, populations that will go from, 100 to 250 million inhabitants. So this, smaller scale, intensified, innovative biomanufacturing technologies can, we think, have a dramatic impact in terms of availability and affordability of complex drugs.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think we will now turn the floor over to Ricardo Godoy from Fiocruz.
Hello. Right. Okay. Thank you. So I had a small PowerPoint presentation. I don't know. I might just go through it quite fast. Well, initially, I'd like to thank you all for the invitation, the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you're doing together. It has already been mentioned that alongside with Quantum, we had other partners in Belgium and long-time partnership with GSK, and we are discussing new maybe opportunities with them as well on some new vaccines that yet to be decided and properly announced. But I think those are great perspectives. And I will just go through a quick presentation on the Fiocruz and Biomanguinhos. So, okay, it's just we've been in actually a long while working for public health in Brazil, targeting to increase access to solutions in the country and abroad as well. With a strong track on international and national partnerships, and we are present in several states in Brazil, covering almost of all geographical areas, which gave us some opportunities to understand and better develop solutions triggered to the territories, and considering all the differences among our different populations, and also environments that we interact with several environmental questions and diseases, infectious diseases. So the prophylactic vaccine field is on our nature and our very start, and is still one of our main targets. So different than Belgium, we are not the best R&D investors, Brazil, unfortunately, and we are not that small as well. So I think we may have a good match on that, since we do have some good opportunities for those willing to innovate together with us. So to talk a little bit about Biomanguinhos, we've been founded in 1976, although the manufacturing activities of vaccines are at Fiocruz. It's very early beginning. In the last 5 years, we have produced 708 million doses of vaccines and different kinds of diagnostics, tests, and a lot of biopharmaceuticals, which is, it's important to mention, is a part of access strategy of the government to otherwise quite expensive medications in the public health system. So those are also, most of them are results of different tech transfers process in partnerships with several countries. And also we have our own R&D, which includes the mRNA vaccine together with Quantum. So I'll just fast forward to those, and to talk a little bit of our context innovation at Biomanguinhos. We have in-house new products, ongoing R&D. We work a lot on process optimization for our current products, and work a lot with technology transfer. And we are also moving on a more frequent basis to clinical trials to test and to keep track of the quality and the impacts of our products. So coming to the points that we are now, we are part of the hub of mRNA vaccines to increase access in regional manufacturing. And in that partnership, we count with a very, very strong support of Quantum. We have elected them as our main provider. So our current new product that we are under GMP manufacturing qualification is based on Quantum platform. And I had the honor to meet Julio last week at Washington. I know he's there listening, right? So it was good to be with you last week at the World Vaccine Congress. And we talk a little bit more further perspectives. We are initiating with the COVID mRNA vaccine as a first target, but we have a signed memorandum of understanding that we want to move to new targets together. So that's a quite important thing to have a little bit of diversity in the portfolio based on this new Belgian manufacturer. And it was told by him that we are probably, we are the most advanced want to have a registration and a recognition of a GMP facility in a new mRNA prototype on his new platform. So I think that's quite important, and it's putting us in a very big spot from several companies and countries and universities. And we are now thinking on diverse options to look for not only new prophylactic targets, but also other more broader indications like treatments. And we now has also a new commitment to advance on CAR T therapy, advanced therapies, and we also considering the role of this manufacturing process integrated to that. So it's going to be very, I think we do have several opportunities to move forward alongside the mRNA platform, but with also different perspectives. And so as I mentioned, we are on the first adopter of quantum for industrial production. So to have this qualified, and we're willing to submit this dossier to Anvisa quite soon. We do have a very intense agenda with quantum engineering staff that they're coming quite often through Fiocruz, so we can make the final tweaks for our engineering lots and clinical lots. So it's been a very challenging journey, but also very full of good results as well. So basically, we do have also other perspectives. We need to improve some aspects of the technology, as other partners have seen, to improve stability, to improve addressing the vaccine to right targets, and to rise expected memory and induce the right immune response. Also, we are looking for different RNA approaches, and that's been a whole new path. I think I was just talking. We were talking about like access in a more broader way, and then we need to mention as well the technology transfers, which is one of most used policies to support this improving access, which results, for example, in GSK mentioned vaccine in Brazil. And this is to give you a little sense of how many partnerships we have. And if you see that we started in 1998 with Belgium, so this is a long journey with many countries. Now, this is to talk about a little bit on how Fiocruz has been involved with different response to public health. So it's also important to notice that it's quite important to have institutions ready at the countries, so the countries are able, like to answer the challenges. It's not just the manufacturing itself, which is a key factor, but there are several other aspects that should be fought alongside, and if we talk about it. So here are a list of ongoing and past partnerships we had on the tech transfer fields. So most, as you can see, it's a different indications. And as I mentioned, we are also discussing new indications together with the health minister and Belgian companies for finished products as well. So as like base conclusions, it's quite important that we now collaborating in earlier stage. There is a lot of research exchange as well. I'm just more focused on final level R&D, but like our colleagues here has a very strong history and of research collaborations and a researcher to researcher level. That's never shows up in this kind of a presentation, but they are quite important as well. It's I think the current partnership with Quantum represents a quite important early stage but well-focused R&D in specific products. So I think it's earlier than a tech transfer, but is also more advanced than like basic biomedical research being done together. So for latest announcements, we are working towards this new factory, and we think that would represent a quite improvement in American Latin capabilities of film finishing. It's a bit different what Julian been talking on, small decentralized things, but we must be aware that we do still have like 100 million doses of vaccine being produced for more traditional products. And just to leave this invitation, we have this symposium on immunobiologicals. We hope to see, I think Julio is coming the week next to that. And yeah, José, sorry, is coming the week next to that to Fiocruz. But we do have some partners coming to Brazil as well. Well, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ricardo. We will now have the presentation by Fernanda Simini, Senior Fellow from CEBRI.
Thank you, Mr. Verano, and thank you, CEBRI, for this invitation. I am enthusiastic of innovation and biotechs, but I don't come from the STEAM area, as I've been working more as a researcher and consultant for international trade and cooperation in the field of public health. So my presentation, you actually, a moment. Should I? Yeah. Okay, but it's me or it's you? Okay. So my presentation will actually focus on some questions that were in the concept note for this event regarding more geopolitical and economics of this bilateral cooperation. So the first question would be, which lessons can we exchange between Belgian and Brazilian actors to encourage cross-fertilization? The second would be to talk about geopolitical tensions and how this cooperation can actually address specific issues. And third, the potential of global gateway, as you all might be familiar with, in regards to bilateral cooperation in the field of health. In order to answer these questions, I will actually be based on a research paper that I just published with some co-authors from the German Institute for International Relations, which was about exploring new interregional opportunities for pharmaceutical supply chains and the potential of Mercosur countries. And of course, I will be focusing, it's not working here. Yeah, no problem. I will be, I was trying to use the laser, but I think that the kind of screen doesn't work. Yeah, upstairs it's okay, but I think the problem is with it's a tech problem here. Well, we actually addressed the potential of Mercosur countries, but of course, as we are here in Brazil, the potential of Brazil to advance the EU Global Health Strategy. So some background here. As you might be familiar with, the EU and its member states now face some medicine shortages, and also with strong import dependencies on China and India. So one of the main goals of the EU is to actually increase its open strategic autonomy and reduce dependencies in the field of pharmaceuticals. I will be addressing pharmaceuticals more generally, and when possible, I will be trying to focus more on bio. But my presentation here, as I'm also using some data, will be more in a general sense. So on the one hand, we have this strategy for EU. On the other hand, Mercosur countries and Latin America in general were among the hardest hit during the COVID-19 pandemic and are also strongly dependent on imports. So the pandemic made certain shortcomings visible and led to the region's wish to increase self-sufficiency in health matters. Actually, there are many plans, regional plans for increased sufficiency as a political objective for the region. And the EU and Mercosur countries should strengthen their economic ties to make Mercosur more self-sufficient. And actually, this was one of the goals set last year in the CELAC in European Union meeting that happened in July. So here, this figures like a lot of information. And as I don't have my point here to help, I will just ask you to focus on that big arrow there that shows the dependency of Latin America from the imports from EU. So 50% of our imports in the pharmaceuticals comes from EU. And the opposite is less than 1%. So we are not a strategic partner when you look like in the opposite way. And this shows actually a great asymmetry in this kind of trade. And it's actually surprising to see this data because we do have important manufacturing places here, as Fiocruz just showed. So what is happening that our products is not reaching the EU market? It's interesting to see, and here I focus on this blue arrow here below, that 37% of all imports from Latin America region comes from Mercosur, or specifically from Brazil and Argentina. So Brazil and Argentina are supplying our regional market, but not EU. So if EU is considering to reduce its dependencies on other countries, on China and India, it should look at our region as a potential for exports. And here in the last graph, we show, we see the percentage of domestic companies, both in Brazil and Argentina. So our market is 6% of domestic ownership or joint venture with domestic companies, and Argentina 68%, which also shows that we have here some potential, some domestic market to be explored. Here I bring some data on some specific items: antibody serums and adrenocortex hormones. Sorry for the pronunciation. Two products with high import concentration and large import volume. So to talk about antibody serums, United States is the main exporter for EU, and Argentina, although has 11.45% of the world total share, is not an exporter for European Union. The same goes for Brazil with cortex hormones. The main supplier for EU is Switzerland and China, and Brazil is an important exporter and has like 10% of the global share, but it's not exporting to EU. Another example here is for antibiotics, which is also a priority for the open strategy for European Union. Here, it's a field that we see the great concentration of China and India, and also maybe can be a possibility for unlock new partners in Latin America. So what I want to try to bring the main idea today is that Brazil can be a low-hanging fruit opportunity for European diversification and of course for Belgium as well. So despite long journey ahead to achieve a comparative advantage in the pharmaceutical global market, Brazil is on the way to strengthening its health economic industrial complex. And I invite you all to check the new policy, the new policy of the government that was just launched last year in order to attract investments for this area. Brazil counts 43 manufacturing sites, but only 13 hold an approval from the EMA, the European Medical Agency. Brazil's pharmaceutical market has grown steadily with the increasing local demand for pharmaceuticals, including generics. And the most recent examples illustrating the significance of these capacities are the efforts made during the COVID-19, and Fiocruz is here to show. So here are some policy recommendations that we bring in our paper, and I would like to share with you today. Brazil and Belgium could benefit from their partnership in 5 points. First, to redesign, I will like talk about each one specifically. To redesign global value chains with a focus on R&D. As Mr. Godoy just mentioned, R&D is strategic in the pharmaceutical global supply chain. And only 1% of the foreign direct investment that happens in Latin America focuses on actually on R&D. So it's urgent to leverage and expand existing innovation capacities to attract quality investments in this sector. So the first recommendation that comes from this data is that EU and member states should design new institutions and incentives to support companies to transfer technology and actually do some state capacity building here in order to focus more on R&D. The second one is to strengthen bilateral cooperation through Global Gateway. And here is interesting information. The Global Gateway could be a major tool used to advance cooperation with Brazil. However, if you see the data on the projects that were already signed, they are mostly focused on transport, energy, climate, and especially in Amazon region. There are few projects focusing in the field of health. So if you're talking about global health as a priority, we should also consider not only bilateral cooperation, but also to redirect investments in the field of health and pharma. Another point that we think that's very important is to support local public procurement. And this is a very challenging point because right now, in the current version of the EU-Mercosur agreement, EU companies, if the draft is signed as the way it is, EU companies would participate in tenders for public sectors purchases under the same conditions as local companies. And in this case, some policies, as in the example, the productive development partnerships, the PDPs, would be seen as illegal under this new trade agreement, this FTA. So initiatives like this one, the PDP, that I invite you all to also search for this model of technological transfer and public purchase, they are very important to create a local market and also to bring companies some kind of long-term public contract in order to compensate for possible private losses inherent to transfer of technology. So just to give you a very overview of this methodology, PDP is a way that you sign a contract to supply the government for 10 years, and you make some technological transfer during this contract. So it's a kind of it's an idea to have a market and also to incentivize some kind of transfer. Another recommendation, and is also attached to the previous one, is to adopt a flexible IPR approach. As we all saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, and multiple empirical studies shows that facilitating transfer of technology and patents through new business operation are very important to facilitate the access to medicines. And if Europe wants to diversify its sources of APIs and other kind of medical supplements, it's important also to allow for new ventures to manufacturing those technology. So, and adopting flexible IPR approach, it's important also to consider that according to certain projections, the number of drugs with patents set to expire will double in the coming years. So it also will allow more companies to produce those drugs. And last but not least, to foster regulatory cooperation. This is very important in order to facilitate trade between the two regions. And this close regulatory cooperation can be achieved through internal reforms in Mercosur countries. No need to be binding, so it can be legally non-binding agreements between Mercosur and the EU. And one example is the cooperation between the European Medicine Agency and Anvisa to share some confidential data on products. And this kind of partnership can facilitate and open new markets for common areas of trade and cooperation. I'm not talking about the best practice between Fiocruz because it's been already mentioned before. So the key takeaways from this research focusing specifically on this bilateral relationship between Belgium and Brazil would be to strengthen private and public collaboration, to reduce geopolitical tensions by reducing dependencies through diversification, and to seriously engage with health and pharma in the helm of Global Gateway. That's it. Thank you so much.
Very good. We now have an opportunity to open the floor to questions. If there are questions from the audience or questions from the speakers or comments. Yes, please.
In R&D in Latin America. The cause is because economic stabilization in the region and the too much regulation to pharma industry. It's my question. What do you think about this?
Should I answer or should we? Can I? Thank you for the question. It's actually a very important and challenging question. Why only 1%? And why China and India has attracted R&D in recent years? I see that there are many issues here. One of them is actually our capacity, our installed capacity, like number of PhDs, number of programs, and etc. And as you mentioned, also the regulation. But what I'm trying to bring here at this presentation specifically is not why Brazil or Latin America has not invested more in R&D, but why companies are focusing more on the other phases of the supply chain, which is producing and marketing. So of course, it's a market driven strategy. But my point here is that at some point, those companies decided to direct their R&D to China and India. And we know that there are many challenges there as well. So why not Brazil, that is striving to create its own capacity as well?
Yes.
Fernanda, in Brazil, we do not have the culture of intellectual property and the research with patents. You don't have. What do you think about that? Because it's difficult to export technology if you don't have the culture of work with intellectual property.
Well, I think that Brazil has a very good code of industrial property. I think the mentality sometimes is of the actors is not necessarily in the direction that you mentioned, but I think we have legal protection. And nowadays, I think there has been a recognition of the value of intellectual property. I think where there has been some differences of opinion is that when you have a crisis and you have health issues in underdeveloped countries, and Brazil certainly fits that description, the government tends to want to impose certain rules and force owners of the technology to give up some of their rights. And I think there are some differences of opinion there. There's a lot of negotiation. In the past, we had that with HIV products, and eventually we worked out a regime that would permit that to happen. But I agree with you that there is, I think we have to have a change of mentality towards intellectual property and the value of that. And we will only do that when we realize how important it is, and if we develop, we would want to have our technology protected.
I think my answer would go in the same line that Mr. Verano. I don't see that our country has not the legal. Actually, we do. We have the legal framework for intellectual property rights. I think the issue of addressing the flag in favor of compulsory licensing in terms of crisis is more like a political flag in cases of health crisis, global health crisis. And I think right now this is kind of an accepted agenda, at least for the global south in general. However, what I would say, I just empty, sorry. I was talking about the global, the compulsory. Yeah, I miss what I will remember, but as I don't see that is a problem in this as a general, like in the okay, I remember. So for the as a public agenda, I understand that Brazil is the leader for some issues as compulsory license. But in the private, talking about the private sector, my question is actually a question which intrigues me. What about China and India when talking about the legal framework? I think in the case of Brazil, it's even more predictable. So, and what intrigues me is like this decision of investing here or in other places. So in this sense, I don't see this as a big problem for pharmaceutical companies.
Sure.
No, I would like to make a comment. I agree, you know, like the capacity in a very large sense, what capacity means. I think it could be a great problem, you know, like for doing that in Brazil, that like you look at China, India, and South Korea, for example, the capabilities they have to push products and engineering projects forward, it's greater than here. It's quite clear trends. I would like to mention a little bit on the regulatory aspects. We've seen a lot of effort towards a more harmonized regulation, international regulation landscape. And I think that would help a lot, mainly the biotech companies that are working in more in the edge of new technologies, new platforms. And we do have, for example, for vaccines, a very restrictive framework. And we do have kind of expectation that we need a vaccine for some disease that will work well for the whole world and whole populations. This is like we've been putting a little thought on this, you know, like, is that right? You know, like to have so few vaccines variability, but it's so complicated to go through a vaccine regulation program that sometimes you just decide to go for, okay, let's kind of check some boxes on the regulatory aspects, and then leave some of new, you know, like better designs possibilities, because we can just prove that in a feasible time. So if we do have like regulations harmonized and some kind of some sandbox together, for example, where we can try some different stuff without safety is always critical, but what does it mean to have efficacy, and what kind of efficacy we are looking for could be a little a space that if some countries decide to work together on that, could be a very innovative approach. So I mentioned that because we are in the field of mRNA, which has had a high push after COVID, but we kind of anticipate some pushback for many new applications if we are looking for. So that's some kind of concern, and also a goal to move forward for more, challenging projects.
Very good. Any more questions? If not, I would like to ask a question of more of a clarification. I'm very impressed with the what we have done so far with the cooperation between Belgium and Brazil. And I must confess that this is not my area of expertise, so I'm here learning a lot, and I hope those that are not in this area are learning as well. How much exchange of scientists and technicians are we having under this program? Because I think one form of implementing this, lessons that we can learn, is probably increasing the amount of cooperation. Because what I understand as a layman and specialists you read all over the place say that sooner or later we will have another pandemic. When it will happen, nobody knows. We don't have a crystal ball. But something will happen and we have to be prepared. And I think what we are talking about here is increasing our capacity with the help from Belgium, with the investments that Biomanguinhos is making and so forth. We will be better prepared than we were in the previous COVID crisis. But how much, I ask this both sides, both to you, Ricardo, and to our Belgian friends, is this something that is just in the initial stages, or is this something that we want to implement and increase the cooperation and exchange more people, send people to Quantum, and some technicians from Quantum come to Manguinhos?
Yeah, maybe if I can start, Ricardo, I would say that the something that in every very bad situation there are sometimes positive outcomes. So the positive outcome I see of the coronavirus pandemic, so there is at least two. One is now awareness that something must be changed. And I think that the entire world is today aware and conscious that there is a dramatic need of more cooperation, more technology transfers and international collaborations, and readiness. So that the old belief that you can, and I liked a lot actually what Fernanda presented, your charts showing that how much European Union is depending from Chinese supply in terms of, we knew that, but I never saw those numbers, like 89 or I think % of antibiotics. So at the end, I think that this was one of the benefits, if I can be a bit ironic, of the coronavirus pandemic. The other very, very interesting outcome of this pandemic is the obvious, the obvious benefit of synthetic biology. Synthetic biology, and more concretely speaking, RNA and synthetic DNA are not new, of course. It was in R&D labs for many, many years. But, again, being ironic, thanks to the pandemic, we were obliged to give, I think, 8 billion doses of RNA vaccines to mankind. And so I think that now this is something that we need to leverage, something to, that we can capitalize upon, because now we have the evidence that this can be safe. These technologies will allow the very fast development of vaccines. And, the conversations we have had with the group of Fiocruz Biomanguinhos over the last couple of years now on these technologies is that now there is, a vast number of opportunities to use synthetic biology to treat cancer, to treat autoimmune diseases, to treat genetic disorders, in addition to prophylactic vaccines. So I think that we must use this opportunity after the pandemic, after the disaster for everybody, the disaster of the pandemic, to use this now as a great opportunity to create more partnerships. So I'm totally with you. So at least us, we have those partnerships. But when I see the size and the power of Brazil in terms of, you guys, you have great universities, you have, top class researchers. You speak very well English, which is not always the case in other Latin American countries. And you have a history, a culture of international cooperation. And we have the same in Belgium for totally different reasons. As I was saying at the beginning, and Mr. Cormans said that as well, we are a small country. And a small country somewhere in Europe where, the big European nations in the past, they were used to come to Belgium to fight. The French, the Dutch, the Germans, everybody was coming here to fight. Belgium was created. And Belgium is a nation that is looking, outside of Belgium to establish cooperations with an incredible ecosystem in pharma, biopharma, great universities, and lots of R&D. So I'm totally with you. This is an opportunity to increase dramatically the number of collaborations in the health and pharma sector.
Very encouraging news. Thank you very much.
If I may intervene, I have a piece of information, is that in Belgium, in a city called Gosselies, there will be a big biotech campus that is financed by European money and also Belgian money. And we could have some kind of cooperation in the way we could attract PhDs and Brazilian masterminds to this biotech school, either to stay in Belgium, because that's a little bit somehow the idea is to attract talents and to have them in Belgium because they are going to fit the local ecosystem. We have basically not only national companies, but also international one, big and small companies, mainly in Gosselies and in Liège. And so the idea, and together with my colleague here, Julie, maybe during the economic mission headed by Princess Astrid, we could have some kind of cooperation or thinking about how we could cooperate together, since we will have also universities and R&D centers that will join this big economic mission. So it could be one of the themes of discussion, how we could use this biotech school and campus, more to say, more correctly, as a platform of cooperation between Brazil and Belgium. And I'm pretty sure that José Castillo, he has some information about that and is fully aware of that project, and I'm pretty sure we will cooperate with it. So it's just an idea that I'm throwing on the table, and let's think about it. And yeah.
Thank you, Rodrigo and all. I'd like, yes, to complement. Quantum knows it very well. We indeed have a very strong ecosystem of collaboration between the private sector and the academic sector. In Belgium, GSK has co-funded a certain number of institutes, research institutes. And so, yeah, indeed, we have this ecosystem. We already have relationships between the Brazilian health ecosystem and the Belgian one. We have companies from Wallonia established in Brazil in the health sector, even small ones like technological ones in the IVD area. And we also have another one from Rio de Janeiro, EpiMed, active in the treatment of data from patients in emergency units established in Brussels. So we have this kind of exchanges. We have funding tools that target academic mobility, that target also collaboration between research centers and companies. There are some research centers in Brazil that participate in clinical trials that could benefit international collaboration. And indeed, I was going to mention this new campus, biotech campus that had a kickoff with some contracts signed with Takeda, among others. And this is indeed a very huge opportunity to strengthen our collaboration. I learned yesterday that Fiocruz will be in Belgium in a bit, so it's an invitation for us to do a complete agenda for you and to meet the various stakeholders so we can plan not only ahead of the economical mission that will occur in November, but also in the long run, because as everyone knows here, innovation takes time, and health and innovation are a very long process. Thank you.
Well, that's music to my ears. I think one of the problems we have in this country is that the relationship between business and government in terms of research is almost non-existent. Maybe if you want to disagree, please do so. I'm expressing my own opinion. But when you mention the importance of the ecosystem that you have in Europe, or particularly in Belgium, I think it's very important that we should learn from that experience. We've talked about here how we can use these experiences as a learning process. And I think this is one area that I think Brazilian industry should start moving more towards working with the government in terms of developing in drugs and in vaccines and so forth. Is very little. All the research is done by the government. And fortunately, we have institutions like Manguinhos and Fiocruz that do an excellent job. Even our health system, with all its defects, it's a national system that works reasonably well for a country the size of Brazil. With vaccination, we have been referred as a benchmark to reach the Amazon, reach the south of Brazil, a country with a tremendous territory, which is continental in extension. It's fantastic. But we need to learn from your success stories and bring this to Brazil. And I think with this cooperation and with the increased cooperation that you have mentioned here, we might be able to reach some excellent results. And dealing perhaps with a smaller country might be easier than dealing with a big China, big US, big other countries. Sure.
Well, I just want to add to that, first, thank for the invitation. Mário Moreira, president of Fiocruz, and Maurício Zuma, director of Manguinhos. They have intense schedule to visit Belgium in the end of May. So I don't have the confirmed dates or the confirmation of the visit, but I'm aware of these plans. So it might be a good opportunity. And I agree that we are far behind on what we could do together, like government and the private sector. And it's kind of being a part of my personal work, actually to work towards more collaboration and to make that a little bit less traumatic, like in the sense that there's a lot of, legal discussions, for example, and rights discussion and different expectations on who should be having what, and then sometimes things are killed before it's even, design. So I think that's a very, very important comment. And we've trying after if you remember, the innovation was included, the word innovation as a government function in Brazil was included in Constitution in maybe less than 10 years, I think in 2016, if I'm not wrong. So we changed our Constitution to include innovation. And then we changed a lot of our laws to try to advance in this kind of relationship, but still we do have some difficulties. I think it's increasing, and national, there are more national players now in the health sector doing R&D, so there is an increase in that field as well. And we just to give a small example, we have this open call from FINEP, the innovation agency, that's called company research institutional partnership. So you must have a company contracting a government institution to do some kind of R&D. That's the base of this proposal. And we have submitted one proposal to that, led by a private partner, Brazilian private partner, to support two very early stages products that we have. So we are even in preclinical phase, and those this company just a couple weeks ago decided to join on this in this journey. So it's very a recent effort that is being explicitly as an intention in this the policy that was published in December 2023. So there is a clear mandate now for public companies, government companies in Brazil, to look for partnerships, preferring Brazilian companies, but as well as other, as we are doing together with Canton, and to move in the initial R&D. I think it's a growing field.
Thank you very much. We still have a few minutes. I don't know if we have anybody that feels that they should make a question. If not,
maybe to come back on a point that was earlier made on the importance of intellectual property and respect for intellectual property and legislation. I think it is key for if you want to have cooperation, especially when it comes to R&D, that you have indeed a strong framework for that guarantees intellectual property rights, because, well, there are some countries in the world where intellectual properties are just not guaranteed, and you see that companies are increasingly reluctant, not just in this industry, but across the board, are increasingly reluctant to invest in these countries, to work with other companies of those countries, because they are afraid that their IPs 5 years down the line, that they themselves will be pushed out of the market by other companies who have stolen their patents or their intellectual property. So it is a key element, I think. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of talk about breaking the patents, and it was painted as a picture of global north versus global south. Also there we have to be very careful, because it's not because you break a patent that you can automatically produce certain medicines. And so when we talk about geopolitical tensions, unfortunately, these debates are sometimes hijacked by certain countries who just want to get a hold on certain technologies that have been developed by companies. And it is important, in order to guarantee future research and development, that we can guarantee that those companies who develop these, who put their money, their capital expenditure in this R&D, will be able to also down the line get the benefits, of course, because otherwise the R&D will at some point just stop happening.
Well, I tend to agree with you, Mr. Koopman. I think Brazil has a very strong patent legislation where we may be lacking some legal support is in technical assistance agreements, because after the end of the technical assistance agreement, the technology becomes public. There is no way you can protect your technology forever. You can, if you have a patent, have a protection for 15 years from the date of filing of the patent. But I think there is jurisprudence in the courts, fair treatment for foreign companies that litigate patent issues in Brazil. We have in our firm a large intellectual property practice, and we have firsthand experience that the Brazilian courts do not discriminate between foreigners and Brazilians. But there's always room for improvement. And I think you have a good point that in order to attract more interest in research and development, joint research and development, you need to have strong laws to protect the intellectual property rights. Sure. Still have time.
Thank you. I just want to complement this debate because just to, actually to conclude my contribution here, I think it's very important to separate what we have as the Brazilian legal framework for intellectual property right, which is just what Mr. Verano just said, and what is the foreign policy of Brazil regarding this agenda in the field of global public health. This is one point. And the second one, when we talk about flexible IPR, we are not talking about compulsory licensing. We're not talking about any kind of like risk for the private sector. We're actually talking about the incentives that Brazilian market has for private sector. Look at the size of SUS. Signing a 10-year contract with SUS can be very interesting for any company, right? Because it's the size of this program is really high, is really big, and we are talking about creating institutions that institutions and policies and programs that allows for technology transfer without this kind of risk of having technology stolen or this kind of concerns. And I think this is why government has to step in order to create this kind of incentive. And I think in a sense that Brazil and EU is actually trying to establish those kind of agreements. Thank you.
Well, I think you have a very good point. I'm going to mention a client of ours without disclosing the name that some years ago felt that the Brazilian drug market was not good for foreign companies. This is an American company. And they downsized their production in Brazil. Today, they're scratching their heads because they have a tremendous demand for their medicine and they don't have the capacity to produce it. And to build a factory takes a number of years or a number of months. And this is an example that you were mentioning, Fernanda. And I think one of the advantages that this country has is the size of the market. And those that are here first will benefit the most. So with that, I'm going to end the session, thanking the speakers very much for their input, for their valuable comments, for your patience in listening to us. And I hope you have enjoyed the presentations as much as I did. I usually judge a meeting like this is when I leave with the feeling that I have learned something and leave better informed. I feel very happy. And I am very happy with the result of this meeting. So thank you very much. And I hope this will be the first of many other meetings of cooperation between Belgium and Brazil. Thank you very much.